This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. Two very senior government officials stand accused of trading in endangered species. Myanmar has all but exhausted the patience of the ASEAN. And a woman claims she gave birth to a baby that was swallowed by a giant snake that then promptly disappeared. But first, to our headline story. Members of a wildlife smuggling ring have been charged for their roles in exporting wild macaques to the United States. Those charged include two officials from the Cambodian Forestry Administration, one being the Director General of the Cambodian Forestry and Fisheries, the other the Deputy Director of the Department of Wildlife. These allegations have set off a wildfire of claims and counterclaims as to who is guilty. One thing is for sure, though, it has severely damaged Cambodia's image at protecting its wildlife.
The 8-count indictment charges two officials of the Cambodian Forestry and Fisheries Administration and the owner of a major primate organisation, as well as 4 of its employees, with smuggling and conspiracy to violate the Endangered Species Act. The defendants facing these felony charges include the Director General of the Cambodian Forestry Administration and the Deputy Director of the Department of Wildlife and Biodiversity for the Cambodian Forestry Administration. The Ministry of Agriculture themselves have decried the arrests and say that they are unjust and unfair. If convicted, each defendant faces up to 5 years in prison on the charge of conspiracy and up to 20 years imprisonment on each of the smuggling charges. There are also potential fines of up to $250,000 on each account. Arrests were made at JFK International Airport in New York, and according to the allegations, the groups were smuggling long-tailed macaques captured within the wild, but they had said that they had bred them in captivity. If convicted, the penalties for this crime are quite rightly very severe.
Numerous ASEAN summits have failed to force Myanmar's junta to seek any form of negotiations to find peace. And Myanmar, the impetuous child of Asia, continues to be run by a gang of thugs and criminals who hide behind the legality of being military personnel. Members of the ASEAN are exhausted by their arrogance, and the question now is, what can the ASEAN do when all else has failed?
The 40th ASEAN Summit took place in the capital this month, and high on the agenda was the ongoing turmoil in Myanmar. The junta's military leader is flouting the very peace agreement that he had agreed to, and ASEAN leaders want an immediate end to the violence, as well as an appointment of a special envoy and humanitarian aid. But after nearly 2 years, the Myanmar junta has done absolutely nothing to curb their violence. Cambodian Foreign Minister and ASEAN envoy for Myanmar, Prak Sakhonn, has visited Myanmar twice, but both times the military has denied him meetings with opposition leaders. So far, more than 100 people have been sentenced to death as of September this year, and more than 2,200 people have been killed, with over 15,000 arrests. The Malaysian Foreign Minister has been among the most outspoken. He has described the executions as a crime against humanity that showed the junta was making a mockery of any peace plan. The endgame must be a democratic and peaceful Myanmar, whose civilian and political rights are guaranteed, not a country that is run by a self-centered criminal gang of thugs who will even murder anybody that opposes them.
Rice exports have soared in the past few years, and many profit as tens of thousands of tons go onto the export market. But for the farmers themselves, they find it hard to sell at a fair price, and this is having a detrimental effect on their standard of living. Now they are calling for help, as they believe they are not getting a fair share of the prosperity that is enjoyed by others.
Cambodian farmers are finding it hard to sell their harvest at a reasonable price. And authorities say this is because all of them harvest their crops together at the same time, and therefore the market is just quite simply flooded. But the farmers argue that they are not getting a fair market price, and those higher up the chain are taking too much of the profit, leaving them with not enough to sustain their farms. Coalition of Cambodian Farmers directors said they had to sell their crops profitably, and farmers do need help from the Agricultural Ministry, but as of yet, none has been forthcoming. He said that the new minister has been promoted from his previous job in the Ministry of Energy and does not have the experience in the agricultural sector, and that will take some time so he can understand the intricacies of the farming economics. The whole issue really does pivot on the fact that some farmers took a very serious hit with serious flooding this season, and to sustain their livelihoods they must at least cover their costs and the needs of themselves and their families, so they may survive through to the next season. At current, they feel very much like their rice fields. They are drowning, but not in water. They are drowning in debt.
These are my favourite kind of stories, I must confess, so here we go with another classic. There are many ways to try and cheat the welfare system so as to falsely claim social benefits. The most common scam is faking a disability or injury, but one woman went an awful lot further. Many would say too far, because in her fake claim she had a uniqueness and some say a level of idiocy that has a refreshing new angle to it. And that is faking the birth of a baby, then claiming that the fake baby had been eaten by a giant snake, which then magically disappeared. Ask yourself, what could possibly go wrong with this plan?
A garment worker this week faked a pregnancy, then pretended to give birth, and then went on to claim the baby was swallowed by a giant snake. All jolly elaborate and all very absurd. The plan was aimed not only to gain attention on social media, but also to falsely claim benefits. The woman had claimed that soon after giving birth, a giant snake had entered her property unnoticed and then swallowed her baby. Again, all without anybody noticing. And finally it slipped out the door, again unobserved. The lady in question then launched into her first phase of her plan, and that was to gain internet notoriety, and she posted this outrageous story on Facebook. The tale quickly went viral across social media and even made it into local media outlets. Investigations revealed that she had attended a local hospital in June and doctors had found no sign of pregnancy, but she had told everyone she was pregnant and she had given birth. Now, doctors found this quite incredible because you cannot deliver a baby in 6 months, another somewhat glaring mistake in her ill-conceived plan. So if you fancy some additional benefits or time off work, then do not go for the giant snake ate my baby routine. It's proven as unsuccessful as it is idiotic.
All too often, business trade is focused on Cambodia and China, but it is the United States that purchases the most of Cambodia's exports. And now, Cambodia and Korean trade is taking off, with an annual increase of 16% this year alone, taking it close to the $1 billion mark.
This year, Cambodia exported $341 million worth of goods to Korea. Cambodia mainly exports footwear as well as other apparel, travel products, electronic components, as well as rubber and pharmaceuticals. The two countries are about to put into force a bilateral free trade agreement, which is set to deepen their economic ties and will hopefully break through to over $1 billion in trade. The Cambodia-Korea Free Trade Agreement agrees to remove tariffs on over 95% of products imported from Cambodia, while Cambodia will eliminate over 93% of tariffs on their imported goods. The free trade agreement would not only open up more markets to Cambodian products, but also attract investment from other countries. And this is how Cambodia can continue to build up a solid foundation to increase the well-being for its citizens. Each and every one of these agreements has a national effect, which is widely beneficial. And as an example, one only has to look at the poorest country in the region, Myanmar, and see the chaos that reigns there, to realise that the road to prosperity is through such agreements as these, so that the nation develops and you can see that the citizens themselves prosper as well as benefit.
And now it's time to look at our sports news. This week, sport can only be about the World Cup, which kicked off in a country most can't find on a map, Qatar. So far, the tournament has been running very much to plan, and the stadiums are indeed impressive. But one game left many South Americans both bewildered and mystified. So let's have a look at the first game's results.
Here are those early results. At the top of this graphic, we have Qatar against Ecuador, of course, because they're the host country. They opened the tournament, and they lost 2-0. England did rather well, 6-2 against Iran, a convincing win. Holland won against Senegal, no surprises there. Australia lost to France, only to be expected, really. But the big loss that shocked absolutely everybody is in the bottom right-hand corner, and that is Argentina went down 2-1 against Saudi Arabia.
It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week.
Here is the upcoming weather chart, and I don't know how to break this to you really, apart from saying it really fast. It's going to rain. Yes, it really is going to rain all throughout the weekend into the beginning of next week. Now, there's the potential the sun may just nip its head round the corner on Tuesday, but then promptly bugger off again, because Wednesday, the rain is back.
This has been the Khmer Times News. You can contact myself at the studio by mailing us at ktnewsstudio@gmail.com. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next Saturday for your weekly roundup.